Hi, Barry, Grez Guitars. I'd like to give you the opportunity to hear what body resonances sound like on a variety of guitars, so you can hear how the instruments I make fit into what's available out there in the marketplace. So to start with, I have a full, large, hollow body Archtop, 17-inch, fully hollow, happens to be a laminated top. But this guitar is based on some of the original designs, back when they were primarily acoustic instruments. And at that point, there was a lot of effort that went into tuning the top plate and the back plate and getting everything to sound as good as it could. You'd find on those instruments that the primary body resonance would generally be within a whole step or two of the lowest note the instrument could produce. So maybe a G or an A. Somewhere in there is where this body would have a primary resonance. And that's the same for any truly acoustic instrument, be it an acoustic guitar or a cello. And if we tap on this body, you can hear a nice sort of musical note, fairly low, has a nice sort of ring to it. And this is how Archtop guitars started out. Over time, they went from solid to plywood for cost savings, for feedback rejection. That process slowly evolved. The bodies became thinner, right? This is still a fairly thick body. Eventually, solid center blocks came in, and the end of that evolution went to something like the 335 that we all know and love. So I have 1967 335 here as a point of comparison. If we tap on this body, you get a very different note. Fairly short sustain, fairly bright. And that's going to affect how this instrument sounds, not necessarily in a good way or a bad way, it just affects the sound quality. Now this is a particularly nice example to get a little bit of cross-section for you to review. I have a early 80s sort of high-end Japanese copy of a 70s 335, but you'll hear basically the same thing. Even tighter, even less resonant, but the same idea. So what I'm producing is something in between. A body that's been tuned to bring back some of the resonances of the big Archtop while still being thin and light like the semi-hollow bodies we're all familiar with. So if we take something like this, it's a 16-inch body, it's fairly thin, like you would expect, but the note is back, right? There's some sustain, it's low in pitch, it's fairly musical. Now this is a big 16-inch body, still very, very thin. If we look at a 15-inch body like this one, the note's going to come up in frequency a little bit. It's inevitable as the body gets smaller. But still nice sustain, just a little higher in pitch. And even a 14-inch body, again, a little higher, but still a nice musical note, versus this. Nothing wrong with that, but very high and very tight. Remember that this is where we started. This is what a big Archtop kind of sounds like. So what does that translate to into acoustic sound? Here we are. Lots of real low frequency energy there. If we go to the 335, and again, keep in mind this is a very nice example of a 335. They won't all sound this nice. So that lowest note, that whole lowest octave, really isn't coming out of the body anymore. The body's too thin and tight. So if we take one of my designs, that lowest octave is back. You're getting a lot of low frequency energy from the body, just like you did on the big Archtop. And that holds true even if we go all the way down to the smallest body here. Obviously a little less low end coming off of this, but still quite a bit more than you get from the 335. The point of all of this is not to say that the big old Archtops are better than the modern semi-hollow bodies, but that we seem to have two extremes in the marketplace. We have big hollow instruments with nice big low-end resonance, and instruments that we're calling acoustic, sort of, that have almost no resonance down in those low frequencies. And that's a lot of what I've worked to bring out, so that we have something that's very light. This is 5 pounds, 5¼ pounds, something like that. It's thin, but it maintains some bottom end to its response. And if you're interested in that sound, if you really like what the body of a guitar adds to the electronic sound, then these may fit the bill.